Good news can often get overlooked or buried by the negative in our everyday lives. So let's change that. I'm Adrianna.
And I'm Wyatt.
We're just two ordinary people without any special qualifications or anything, trying to navigate life. We invite you to join us as we share wholesome stories, news articles of hope, and ideas about how we can all make the world just a little bit brighter. We are uplifting positive stories. Welcome back to another episode of Uplifting Positive Stories. We're so glad you joined us.
Here we are again.
We got a really interesting topic today about knowing your worth.
What's that?
Yeah, what? How do we do that?
Especially as independent business owners, what is that?
It's very, very hard. I think in so many areas, and that's why this topic is a bit broad. I feel like it covers a lot of different areas. It's so hard knowing our own self-worth and standing up for our own self-worth in life, and also doing that same thing for others as well, making sure that they see their own worth and standing up for other people when they're not able to see their own worth and when they're not getting what we think they should be getting in any area of life, whether it's relationships, whether it's job stuff, whether it's anything, making sure that we're doing it for ourselves and for others. So we got a large range of stories for today. We're going to start off with relationship one. This one comes from the subreddit Self, and it is titled, I'm Proud of Myself. The story says, my life has gone through lots of changes recently. My social circle and my now ex weren't the best people out there. My friends and my now ex used to manipulate me to get virtually anything they wanted out of me, and I complied, given that I cherish and care for my friendships. My now ex wasn't the best significant other. I often caught her hiding other guys and whatnot. She wasn't the most loyal partner out there. Even though I really cared for her, deep down I knew that she wasn't destined to stay with me. Several months ago, I decided to cut them all off. I entered a deep depression lasting months. I felt like fixing the things that went bad with them, but knew that it would lead nowhere, since that's what I tried for years. They started spreading rumors and whatnot about me. Still don't know with what intention, but I don't care to know. It was really hard, but I stood on my decision. I was scared to make new friends, to be around new people. Interacting with the world became what it seemed as an insurmountable problem. Still, I tried. There were times where it was so hard that I stayed for days in my room without leaving. My confidence was shattered. I couldn't seem to approach girls even as friends, and strangers felt as if they were to be hostile for no reason at all. I still stood by my decision. I tried nearly everything I got my head upon, and things started getting better with time. My life is nowhere near what it was some time ago. I can confidently say that I have rebuilt my life. I may not have as many people around me as I used to, but I've come to realize that what really matters is that the people who are around you are good people who have your back and care for you. I have rebuilt my confidence. I was shocked when I was able to DM a girl I'm interested in. I've rekindled old, good friendships I left aside due to my ex. I've gotten back to the good habits I lost due to my ex and the people I used to surround myself with. I'm proud of myself for staying strong through the hard times and for what my life is becoming. I had lost myself in my relationship and my friends, but I am slowly but surely coming back to the person I used to be. A confident man. My family has noticed the change and said that they're happy for me, for they have seen me go out with my old friends and become happier with the time. My anhedonia has gone away, and I'm now able to enjoy music as I used to. University has become something I enjoy rather than something that I fear, since they, my previous social circle, often did things there that hurt me. What made me notice that I've gained confidence was messaging that girl. That's an achievement I've never in a million years imagined myself doing. I'm really proud of myself for doing that. I'm proud of myself for going to school. I'm proud of myself for getting out of my bedroom and taking care of myself. I wish I had the words to fully express my pride, for I feel no longer shattered anymore.
Dang. That's just a lot. This is college, right? Or college years?
Sounds like it, yeah.
Because it sure as heck feels like petty high school stuff. The beginning with the old friends and stuff. That's stuff you hear in high school of, friends being catty towards each other.
It can happen at any walks of life.
Right, but it seems more it feels like you hear about it more so in high school, but I guess college is not too far off from high school, and maybe who's experiencing those issues prior to that too, it's just amalgamated in college, because college, you're entering a whole different phase of your life, and you're discovering who you are. Really, there's a reason why a lot of people change their majors, halfway through, because they realize maybe what they were originally going for is not for them, and that's not the life,
Right.
that it's just not the direction for them, and
Yeah.
that goes with friendships too. And sometimes they don't, old friends, or in this case, I don't think they were ever friends, based off of the description at least,
Yeah.
aren't part of that growth. That, I don't know. And like, it's good
Yeah.
to identify that. I mean, it sounds like they tried, so it's not like they're
Yes,
just
they
like
couldn't. It's
without
not like it just
warning.
randomly like, you know what, I'm done
Yeah.
with them. Like they definitely sound like they tried.
Because like any relationship, you should communicate. And like, hey, if you're having
Mhm.
issues, like talk to
Try
them
to
all,
make
like,
it
hey,
work.
like this is bothering me. Maybe you're not realizing this is bothering me, but it's also hurting my self-confidence. So
Yeah.
just so you're aware that these things are hurtful. And I mean, I don't think you should just cut them off without any warning. I guess it depends on the severity of the situation, but
Yeah.
it sounds like they tried. And at
Yeah.
that point, then it is time to just cut them off. And,
Move on to hopefully better
sounds like
things.
he rekindled with the good ones, but there's something to be said about,
Yes.
cutting. I can see why you might need to cut clean initially and just get out of it,
Yeah.
especially when there's like clicks. It's hard to, cut off from some but not others when it's an integrated group, versus
It
just
is,
leaving
especially when it sounds
everybody.
like there were rumors that were happening when they were
Yeah, that's
starting
the
to step
part that was
back. Like
especially
that's
like, what's
really,
going
really
on
hard,
there?
and that's not something that good friends do,
No.
And so good on OP for recognizing that, because it is so hard when it's friendships or a relationship or anything like that to recognize that and to actually say, I deserve better and I know my worth and I shouldn't have to deal with that in a friendship. Like, I shouldn't have to worry about them, what they're saying behind my back. I shouldn't have to worry about toxicity. Like, it's so hard because we desperately want relationships in our life and we want to be around
Mm-hmm.
people. And it's so scary, especially as adults, to try to make new friends sometimes when you cut out people, because it's, unless you have like a lot of coworkers or things like that, or you're very involved in activities, it's hard to meet people. It is, because a lot of people
Yeah.
already have formed friendships that they've had for years at that point. It can be really scary, but there's something to be said that holding on to relationships out of fear of not being able to make new ones is sometimes not helpful, and it can be harmful, because if you're feeling depressed and you're not feeling good and that's making it harder for you, like, it's not, what's the point in
Mm-hmm.
maintaining that if you've already tried and it just keeps getting worse? Like, at some point you gotta kind of know your own worth and say, okay, like, if you're not gonna be willing to meet me halfway here to try to not do these things that are hurting me, I don't want to be a part of this anymore. And even if it's scary and I might be alone for a while, I'd rather that than continue to drag down my own self-worth with this.
And it might, suck. It might feel like it sucks worse for a while to make that cut, because then you feel alone. But,
Yeah.
like any healing process, you got to go through some pain before, start to get better. But the
Yeah.
path that they were on before doesn't sound like was really going to lead to a good place if
Yeah.
continuing that current course.
And I think here too, it sounds like when they pulled back, they kind of, I'm reading between the lines here, but it sounds like they were able to kind of work on themselves because they got a lot of their confidence back and kind of took their own power back in a way by doing that, and like being like, I'm going to be more choosy about who I let into my circle going forward, and reconnecting with old friendships that they thought were good for them, And so by doing that, it sounds like they got more confidence, because like they kept mentioning, like, I reached out to a girl that I was interested in and I would have never done that. Like, that's a confidence thing that clearly OP was struggling with while with these friendships. So I think that there's something to be said that sometimes when we pull back and we don't put our worth in our friendships or our relationships, and instead focus on ourselves and what we like about ourselves and working on ourselves to grow, that sometimes that brings the right people into our life and it can make you a lot happier in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
For
it's
sure.
a tricky thing though. And I know there's been plenty of times in my life where I've struggled with that. So good on OP, and you should feel proud of yourself, because that's huge.
Mm-hmm. And who knows, maybe like you can, I guess I don't know the severity of it. Been rumors is kind of hard to get over and stuff
Yeah,
sometimes, but like maybe like they were in a rough place too. And then
it's
even if
possible.
like, everyone's the hero of their own story, and like maybe in their mind, OP was the problem or actually was doing
It's
things from their
possible,
perspective. Maybe those rumors were true.
right?
I mean, maybe
We don't
not.
know. We don't
Don't
have
know that.
context.
Let's just
Yeah.
saying, but even so, it's still good to break away. Like I know one of my old best friends, we lived together for a time in our adult life, and we kind of went our own separate ways. And like, I think at the time we both kind of would argue that the other was kind of toxic to be around or something,
It
and like,
happens.
and
Roommates is a hard
we've since
thing.
like talked a couple times, like since that, years later, post-mortem as it were, and kind of realized that we were both in a very different but equally negative place, and we were just
Dealing with it in different ways.
dealing in different ways, and they were not working together. Those issues we were
roommates is
working
another
through,
completely difficult relationship thing to deal with. It's hard to be roommates with other people and stuff. It's always going to be, there's going to be struggles and stuff like that. So that completely makes sense.
Yeah, but sad to say though, we had to break away though to be able to work through our crap, because we were, even though years before that we were able to help each other through stuff, that was this time period where we weren't able to help each other,
Right.
and it wasn't good. But we were able to, I wouldn't say rekindle. We're not saying like we're super close friends now, but we've been able to have that conversation afterwards and kind of assess what happened and why and where we were coming from, years later.
That makes sense.
And it kind of needed to happen, that break, to end up where we are separately now, and it's hard. Like, it's sad, like, to throw away, not throw away is a harsh word, but, to put aside a friendship that you've spent years into. It's got some cost fallacy, It's just sometimes, and again, it might be because one side is more toxic than the other, or it might just be, dude, you guys just aren't jiving anymore, and you gotta move on, and maybe you'll come back eventually at some point, or maybe you won't, but anyway, that's my emotional connection there for a moment.
Yeah, I think we all can probably pinpoint parts in our life where we've had to do that. So yeah, it's a good example. Next story, this one comes from the subreddit Relationships. Starts off a little rough, has a very positive update, and this one also is kind of more about recognizing someone else's self-worth and not just letting them be put down, and making sure that you stand up for others when their self-worth is being diminished. So the title of this one is, I, 30 female, am a doctor. My boyfriend, 29 male of 1.5 years, is a nurse. My dad's 50 male wife, 48 female of 4 years, continuously makes fun of my boyfriend for his profession, and I'm tired of it. Story. My parents had me really young, and my mom split when I was 3, so it's only been me and my dad. My dad is an only child, and his dad died when he was in school, and my grandmother passed when I was 10. My dad is truly one of the most incredible people ever. He raised me more or less on his own and sacrificed so much for me to be where I am today. I met my boyfriend my last year of residency. He was a nurse in a different unit, and we met in the cafeteria. One thing led to another, and here we are. I am a hospitalist in a different hospital now, but he still works at the same place. We moved in together about 3 months ago, and I truly do see myself spending the rest of my life with this man. Anyway, my dad didn't date at all when I was growing up, really, but when I was in college, he met Cindy, a divorcee with no kids, through a friend of his. They started dating around 10 years ago and got married 4 years ago. I've always gotten along with Cindy. I consider her a very close older friend. I was simultaneously maid of honor / best man at their wedding, and I think she's a wonderful partner for my dad. My dad loves my boyfriend. They often hang out without me, which is totally cool, and Cindy did as well, at first at least. For the past 6 months or so, she's made some really pejorative comments about my boyfriend being a nurse, him being the woman in the relationship. My boyfriend is 6'4", muscled, bearded. He's basically the epitome of masculinity, just because he's a nurse. My boyfriend laughed off the comments at first and explained why he went into nursing rather than being a doctor. Nurses work more with patients than doctors do, and he's a very nurturing person by nature. But Cindy just would not let up.
Nurturing, it's like they share
commonality.
There's commonality there.
I really don't think my boyfriend is bothered by this, but I definitely am. I think it's disrespectful, and her archaic views of men's versus women's work are not appreciated. I can tell my dad gets ticked off about it too. Once he told Cindy to just shut up in gentler terms when she kept joking about it. She always defends herself as just joking, but it's not funny. I've talked to my dad about it, and he agrees that it isn't cool, but he just goes on about how she doesn't mean any harm or whatever. My boyfriend is adamant that it doesn't bother him, but still, I just think it's so disrespectful. How do I talk to Cindy about this in a way that she'll stop? Because honestly, if it continues, I'm going to cut back on spending time / seeing her, even though it'll definitely hurt my dad, which is something I don't want to do. It's a tough situation.
Well, first I'd ask yourself why it bothers you so much. It's one thing if the boyfriend, if it really did bother him, he's just really brushing it off. But if he genuinely doesn't bother him, at that point, it's really just you that it's bothering. So I'd ask the
Right.
question, why is it bothering you?
Yeah.
Do you deep down feel like insecure about his job and his position because you were a doctor and maybe you heard other comments from other people, not about your boyfriend specifically, but
Right.
about that field? Are you concerned about, like, kind of flip the script a little bit? Are you concerned that he's not fitting that typical masculine? Not necessarily that like she thinks that to that extent, but is there an insecurity there that maybe
Possibly. It could
that's
be
hidden,
that.
you know?
Or it could just be worry or concern that these comments might not bother him now, but if they keep coming, might start wearing
Mm,
down his ego and making him question things more.
mm-hmm.
Because there's something we said, if it's like a one-off joke, fine. But if it keeps going, that sometimes that you might start going, oh, maybe there is something to that. You know what I mean? And that it might start diminishing his self-worth feeling a little
Yeah.
bit over time, even if it's not right now.
It's like death by a thousand cuts
Or
kind of a
feeling
thing.
like it's just that she has a negative view of him. Like, you know what I mean? Like this worry that like deep down you don't respect his profession. Like that you don't respect him as a person. And that even if he doesn't bother him, it bothers me that you don't respect him. Do you know what I mean? That's my
Mm-hmm.
thoughts on why maybe she might be a little off put by these comments. I'm glad to see that this is just, it seems like a very isolated incident. It sounds like other than that, their relationship is great. And sometimes you might not realize that these jokes are actually bothering them as much as it is, so which we've talked about in other past episodes. So with that, we will go into our update.
Okay. Okay.
So the update literally is just called happy, 3 exclamation points.
All right. So
So here
went
we go.
good. Something went well.
Yeah, right? Okay, here we go. My first post blew up in a way I didn't expect to. But I wanted to thank you all for your advice. You gave me a lot to think about, so when it came time to talk to Cindy, I wouldn't trip over my words or anything. I took her out to lunch yesterday, Sunday, and just very matter-of-factly told her how I was tired of her disparaging my boyfriend, how I was tired of her putting down nursing as a profession and dismissing it just as women's work, and finally told her that despite her insistence that she was just joking, I found her jokes offensive and was done with hearing them. I made it very clear that my boyfriend hadn't sent me to defend him, but that I was the one who was offended and tired of it. She started to cry a little, which was alarming, and broke down and told me why she was doing what she was doing. Apparently, long story short, in her first marriage, Cindy's income was more than double that of her husband. After a year or so of marriage, he quit his job and ended up just mooching off of her. He became incredibly emotionally abusive and ruined her financially until she was able to get out and leave him. Basically, she was nervous that the same would happen to me, and she hoped that her jokes would sway my opinion enough to leave my boyfriend. I was kind of question mark, question mark, question mark about her explanation, but she told me that she knew the jokes were childish and offensive, but she didn't know how else to go about it. She said that I was the closest thing to a daughter she had, and that she loves me very much, and that she felt awful about everything. I
That's.
started getting teary at this. Oh, what?
I already have thoughts. Sorry.
That's all good. I started getting teary at this, and I told her the jokes especially hurt from her because she is someone I care for deeply, and she apologized profusely for having offended/hurting me. She said she really thought my boyfriend was a nice guy and that she wanted to get to know him better, which thrilled me. I went home, told my boyfriend, who didn't know why I was gone, I wanted to be covert about it, and he was thrilled. He told me that he secretly was upset about the jokes. Yes, he knew that Cindy was someone I cared a lot for, but put on a game face because he didn't want to drive a wedge in between us. He told me that he loved me and thanked me for standing up for him and said he's looking forward to getting to know Cindy better too. And my dad is over the moon as well. Thank you for all of your advice, all. Communication really is key.
That's true. But this actually makes it worse to me. That, like, she was trying to get her to break up with her boyfriend just because of his profession?
I mean, it says that. I wonder if more so it's more just a concern that, like, she doesn't want that to happen to her. Sometimes, like, our own experiences and trauma or things that affected us negatively, sometimes we start projecting it out in the world and seeing, like, oh, that might be that. You know what I mean? I want to protect so and so that doesn't happen to them. And sometimes it's not accurate. You know what I mean? Sometimes our own fears and anxieties about situations that we see out here aren't actually the same.
Right.
So I completely get where
I get her concerns. I was just like, to go from like I guess I see that's kind of spurring her comments. I thought that would be more so like the comments are like trying to get him to like
make sure he doesn't do that.
Yeah, or like get another job. Not like convince her to break up with him. Like that's
right.
Especially because she later said, "Oh, yeah, I think he's a really nice guy." Like, shouldn't that be more important? I don't know. And also, to be clear, nurses are not like a low-paying profession. Now, granted, there are many arguments to be made that they're not paid enough for the amount of work that they do and
It's
the
true.
working conditions, and there's a lot of other factors, but they make pretty good, more money than I make, that's for sure,
Yeah,
at least
it's
on the
true.
local level from the numbers I've seen. Like, oh, I don't make that much money, but they know a lot more, and they
Yeah,
have a lot more
right.
responsibility. They should be making more than I do.
Yeah.
But they're not like, I don't know. Well, I don't want to make a comparison thing. That sounds negative to disparage another profession. But, like they're not, I don't know, super low is just because he's a man versus
Right.
woman. Like, that's just,
But
I don't
yeah.
know.
But to look at the positive of the
Yeah.
story, I
Let's get
do
back
think
there.
that it's very good that OP was able to have this conversation. And I'm glad that this person, Cindy, was receptive to the conversation and didn't just get defensive and didn't just like blow it off and be like, oh, well, it was a joke. Can't you just take a joke? Because
Hmm.
some people do respond that way
Well,
and
it
they
sounds like she
can't.
was doing that before in like previous
Yes.
when called on in the
But
moment.
the fact that they met one on one, and
Hmm.
so it's not in front of other people, and like she just put it all on the table and was like, hey, I'm thinking about pulling back from hanging out with you if you keep doing it because it offends me. You know what I mean? Like that, I think was a really good way of going about it. And I think that by doing that, she stood up for her boyfriend, but in a way that didn't come off like she's just going to bat for him. You know what I mean? She was like, it offends me that you're putting him down because I know his worth.
Hmm.
I know that he works his butt off or whatever she said, because I mean, nurses work a lot and it's a lot of work. And like, I know that he puts his heart and soul into it and why he wanted to be a nurse so he can be closer to his patients. And like, I love that about him. Please don't put that down because that offends me that you're doing that to him.
Hmm.
And I think us being able to do that for other people, and it doesn't even have to be our significant other, it could be our friends, it could be acquaintances, it could be anyone, and just being open to standing up for their self-worth, even if it's not that you're like, see, I went to bat for you. It's more of a just, I don't want to see you having your self-worth being diminished by somebody else, and if I have the power in this dynamic right now to be able to voice that, like to say that and hopefully get some change out of it so that you don't have to deal with that anymore, I'm going to do it.
Hmm.
And I think that was super, super nice that she did that for him. And obviously, it's great because he was getting affected by it. He
Yeah.
admitted to her afterwards, which I thought could be the
Yeah,
case.
I guess it was probably it was very possible. I was saying it's just if that wasn't
Yeah.
the case, truly, but I mean,
Right. So
again, it's
I'm
death by a
glad that she
thousand
did.
cuts.
And now the relationship can move forward, hopefully, in a
Hmm.
more positive light. Cindy in the story was able to take that and actually be like, okay, you know what? You're right. You're right. I shouldn't make those jokes anymore. I do want to have a good relationship with your boyfriend. I want to get to know him better. And they can move forward. And now she can be like, her dad seems like way more on board now. Like, yay! I'm glad you guys were able to smooth that over, and it's just gonna hopefully be better for
Hmm.
everybody going forward. So
And
it can really be a good thing to do that.
and hopefully the boyfriend feels more comfortable sharing misgivings he has or things that are bothering him, because like there's a way to communicate that without like driving
Driving
a wedge
wedges.
that he was concerned about.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing, especially if she's drawing attention to, like she's asking, if she's asking, that's a permission that you can share that you're
Yeah.
uncomfortable with this.
Right.
I don't think it's necessarily causing a wedge, so
Yeah.
hopefully that opens up lines of communication on their end as well moving forward.
Exactly. I will say, like, not every relationship is the same. Not every dynamic of families is the same. So the things we're talking about here don't apply to everybody or every relationship. We're just talking about our own advice slash opinions slash thoughts on this story. So I always have to put that disclaimer in here because every relationship dynamic is so different and
No,
stuff.
it's very, very true. But no, but I totally understand though the feeling of wanting to go to bat
Yeah.
for your partner. I know I've wanted to many times for you.
Same on your
You
behalf.
don't let me.
It's hard. It's hard. Yeah. So, but it's something that's important to do at the same time, too.
Yeah, it's sad when it's like, I don't know. I feel it's like professions get judged a lot
It's true.
more than they should. They get wrapped up in your identity, and especially if you don't understand the profession.
It's true.
I know one that you deal with sometimes is, people don't fully understand that, you work for our business full time. It's not exactly the same as like a normal job, and so it's kind of treated a little differently sometimes. It's like, well, you have to do what you want to do, like, so you can't, can you really complain about your work? Like, you do a lot of work. You're working, you don't have defined hours, like you're working all hours of the day almost, especially during our busy season, like right now in the midst of our very busy season, you're working a lot of hours. And so like sometimes other people don't quite get that you are putting a ton of work, even if it's not like necessarily for like a manager or for a corporation. Like, you're still doing a ton of work. It still is a job,
Right.
and I don't know. That's something I want to go to bat for you too, is
Oh.
because I feel like that stings at you a little bit. They're not meaning ill will by any means. They're just not understanding,
Yeah.
especially like when we're like, when you're friends and stuff and you want to complain about your jobs a little bit, you want to be able to join that conversation if you have things you want to talk about and work through, and to not give them that same respect is a little hard for you sometimes. And that makes me want to like, not fight for you. It's not that level. It's not like when you did work for a corporation and bad things were happening. Like, I want to like run into the office, like, hey, like stop that, or like contact certain people. Nothing quite to that level, but you do a lot of work, and I feel like that should be recognized. And it sounds like, again, maybe she wasn't fully understanding what a nurse does.
Yeah.
Because nurses do a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Especially, I don't know when the story came out, but following the pandemic,
Oh
my gosh, even
the
more
stories
during
I
the
heard.
pandemic.
Yeah, it's true. It's so true. But yeah, speaking of jobs, going up more on that thread, our next story is from True Off My Chest, and it is titled, I Just Doubled Someone's Salary. Here we go.
Can it be me?
The story says, I manage a team of analysts, and I got this application for an open role recently from a guy who's been working in my company's warehouse for a year. Not some kind of technical position either. He's been slinging boxes. Still, we try to give internal candidates a little bit more of a shot, make sure they don't get lost in the pile. And it turned out that this guy is actually incredibly qualified. It's just that all of his analytical roles were from his home country, and when all your work has been done in developing country not known for producing analysts, and done in not English, it's pretty hard to get hired. But his skills were so relevant, and my team really liked him, and he's picked up a crazy amount of useful knowledge in the past year. Our HR can get a little iffy about giving someone too much of a salary increase when they change roles internally, so I came at them pretty hard about not lowballing him, and they didn't. They did let it slip to me, though, that it'll be double what he's making now. I got to give him the verbal offer today, and he didn't even wait a second before accepting. He was so stoked. I think he's out celebrating right now. We may not be at peak warehouse efficiency tomorrow. This is the most fun I've ever had hiring someone. Edit. Guys, literally all I did was hire an objectively very well qualified person and spend like 15 minutes tops writing various do not lowball him messages in order to get him some money that I otherwise couldn't touch or do anything with. It is a happy story and we should all feel happy for him. But this comment section, it's like if I posted that a puppy that poops solid gold and you all started giving me kudos for being a selfless animal rescuer. This is a logical action that just happens to also be nice.
There you go.
Some comments. When I was fresh out of college, I lowballed myself in my first job, but the offer for it came back much higher than what I asked for. I pay that forward every chance I get. I had an applicant lowball herself and I just straight up told her, nah, you want this much. I've also had frank conversations with other managers throughout my career about compensation. We should be advocates. It's not our money coming out of our pockets. If someone gets an extra $7K at the beginning of their career, it can be life-changing. $7K out of the bottom line of a huge company? Not even noticed. And another comment, and it's honestly in yours and the rest of your team's best interests. You get someone that accepts a lowball, then in a few weeks they realize what they could have asked for but didn't, or even get a callback from another interview they did offering a higher salary, which is easy for the competing company since your offer was a lowball. Then they quit, and you got to start the whole hiring process over and hope you find another qualified candidate. So in a roundabout way, it's also in your company's best interest too. It'd be eye-opening to calculate the cost of hiring a new candidate when applied to the hours of current employees involving the interview process, not just the compensation package of the new hire.
Mm-hmm.
It's so true.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's hard for us, especially because, like especially you're self-employed with our business, and like, how do we charge for our services? That's definitely been a learning process, give or take. Fortunately, there's been a couple people in our industry that have given us some work that I lowballed ourselves, like we'll do it for this much. And then they came back say, yeah, it's a lowball, do this instead.
Yeah.
I haven't had that for like a job salary before, but I've definitely had that for our work sometimes. And for self-employed people, it's hard to
Yeah,
charge what you're worth. And we see all the
true.
time with like photographers we worked with that have been charging X, Y, or Z at one point. They're like, I need to charge more. Like, I'm just, the amount of work that's put in
Right.
is just way more. And same with us, we've had to change our pricing here and there as we've figured out what our
How much
worth
work is
is,
into
like
things,
how
and
much
yeah,
work and experience. And it's hard. It's hard
it's
to,
very hard
I mean,
in any
obviously,
career. Yeah.
yeah. I know obviously you want to, I feel like any of us would ask for like an infinite amount of money, but it's
Yeah.
hard to, that fear of rejection comes at you too, so it's hard to,
Yeah.
you don't want to overprice yourself,
Yeah, exactly.
but it's cool
And when
when,
you're applying to a job too, you're interviewing against other candidates. You don't want to ask too much, and then that someone else asks for less, and that's why they get picked over you if you really want that job. It's such a hard thing. It's such a hard balance, and but I think it's important to still, even if you're worried about being competitive, to ask what you're worth and stuff. I think it's just it's important because you don't want to resent the fact that you didn't ask for more later down
right.
the road, and like it's just it's such a hard thing, but I think we can all work on it hopefully and start to see our own worth, and be willing to speak up about it and not just lowball ourselves, not just in jobs but in any scenario in life. And yeah, like I said, like relationships, jobs, literally anything.
And
So
it's cool to see some of the commenters saying that they're doing this for other people and stuff, and
yes,
like, and I would love to get to that point as well. Like that'd make me
yeah,
feel so like fulfilled to be able to,
help people see their
yeah,
worth, and like yeah,
and be able to offer highball offers to people and stuff. I'd love
yeah.
to be able to do that.
It's super cool. So yeah, it was a very wholesome story. One last quick story. This one comes from True Off My Chest, and it is titled Positive Vent. And it says, I was sleeping in a bed with my boyfriend, and I woke to him in the middle of the night, holding me tightly and muttering to himself shakily. His voice made it sound like he was on the verge of tears, and repeatedly, over and over, he just said quietly, You're so perfect. You're so perfect.
Oh.
I've grown up with a rough family life, and I haven't really had good friends prior to the group that I have now, so someone so unconditionally loving me has been hard to adapt to, but amazing. His family has welcomed me with open arms and been super supportive. I am so grateful for them.
That's way more wholesome than most of our late night interactions where it's like you sit up or like just staring at the wall. Like, what are you
Sleep
staring at?
talking.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's actually
exactly.
really wholesome.
Right? Isn't that sweet? But yeah,
Hmm.
like we all deserve to be in relationships, friendships where people are valuing us and are seeing our worth and are happy to be have us in their lives. And like that is something that every single person deserves. So to see stories like that on Reddit or other places like that is very inspiring. All right. Our news story today comes from CBSNews.com, and it is titled Meet the Philadelphia Mom Helping Young Girls Through Her Nonprofit. So, the nonprofit is called Know Your Worth. It is from a woman who is a mom in Philadelphia. She basically does this for girls that they meet twice a week, and they do different things like community service, different programming stuff, cultural enrichment, and youth entrepreneurship. And to quote the article, most importantly, their sessions impart the significance of valuing themselves. And so it's all about trying to teach girls their own self worth and coping mechanisms and self esteem and all those things that are important to have in life so that they can have hopefully success as they go off into careers or whatever they go on to after high school and stuff. One of the girls who was a ninth grader that was interviewed said, I've been picked on a lot and it does kind of hurt. It doesn't really feel the best. Some of the assignments and affirmations have helped me a lot with my self-esteem and mental health. I am beautiful. I am my own person. So yeah, it's all about self-love, giving back, and learning. The person who is the owner of the group said that there's a lot of violence going on in Philadelphia, and so being able to help young females feel safe and to have, those kind of coping mechanisms and self-worth affirmations and all of those things will really help them as they go out into the world. And so and being a mom, that's really important to her. And so doing that for other girls is kind of her way to help the community. And I think that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No,
So
for sure. I mean, I feel like anyone could benefit from being taught their self-worth when they're younger, but especially given more so given circumstances of what seems like a seemingly safe, less and less safe seeming
area.
You know,
Yeah.
you want people to feel safe. You know?
And I mean, it's so hard for girls, especially like, so especially with social media. I can't even imagine. Social media was just starting to become big when I was in like middle school and high school. Like Instagram was just starting to kind of become a thing. I can't even imagine.
Don't date us
nowadays.
like that.
I know, right? But nowadays it's so commonplace and stuff, and the pressure is on girls is so hard, and there's like this standard that you kind of have to uphold to, and like it's just so hard. And so I can't imagine for these girls dealing with that daily that are in high school and middle school nowadays. So to have this outlet that's kind of reinforcing on the other side of that, being like, you are beautiful, you have your own self-worth and your individuality and stuff like that, and that makes you beautiful, and like you don't need to strive for whatever you think you need to strive for. You are cool and amazing just because of who you are. I think that's such an important message for especially young girls that are going through that hard time. And so, yeah, it really hit me. I thought that was a really, really awesome foundation that she's created. So good for her.
Mm-hmm.
We need more of that in this world. So, with that, we will end today's episode. Tune in next week for our next episode, which is all about being true to yourself. And hope you will join us. If you have any positive stories or news articles of hope that you would like us to share on this podcast, please send them to us at upliftingpositivestories@gmail.com. We would love to have your stories, big or small, whatever you want us to share. We'd love to share it. You can also share it to our Reddit thread at Uplift Positive Stories. So feel free to post on there as well.
And if you're watching YouTube, remember to hit that like and subscribe button.
We would really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful rest of your week.
And stay positive.